Great. So actually, you touched upon something which is near and dear to my heart, which is patient privacy and patient information, right? And on the one hand, what you talked about makes perfect sense, right? If you can have enough data, so you can actually singular the treatment for the greatest possible remedy. On the other hand, how have we developed the ability, I mean, beyond HIPAA, right? I'm not even talking about regulations right now, which is really about collecting data for the right reasons, but also protecting the data, right? So how, I mean, how have you seen the healthcare industry, has it evolved to a point of saying, okay, we understand way beyond PII, way beyond HIPAA, what patient data really means, and how do you protect that?
It's a great question, and I laugh because HIPAA came into existence in 1994, right?
That's why I hate when somebody brings up HIPAA and
you're
privacy.
almost 20 years later, and
yeah.
you think, have we progressed, or are
Yeah.
people just budgeting for HIPAA fines on an annual basis, right? Everyone now knows you're going to be on the wall of shame if you lose some number of records, and is that really an incentive to do better? Maybe. I don't know that it's necessarily changing what you're getting to, which is what is our core assumption here about what is important. At first blush, you look at someone's blood pressure reading and you say, that doesn't matter. Like, who even wants to go after that? There's no point to securing it. And I think as you think of the implication of understanding a person's personal health and how that can impact perhaps insurance, or can impact other facets of their life and things that they're worried about, it becomes more obvious. I would say device manufacturers have come a long way in terms of how they think about information. It used to just be default, right? That your social security number became your hospital record number. And I think they've all come a long way in terms of that. It unfortunately is one of those things where the system kind of trickles across. So if the health record system uses your social security, then all of a sudden the infusion pump needs your social security. And then all of a sudden the disposable attached to it needs it. That's since changed, and we're able to see that pretty tangibly in terms of maturing across the board. What I'm still a little on the wall about, right, is when we collect all of this information, there's this notion that healthcare is so special and unique that we have to do things in our own way, and we have all these special circumstances that require that. So sometimes that means I'm going to stand up my own data center at my corporate headquarters, and that's where I'm going to store all this really sensitive data. Maybe there was a time when that made sense. I think as we've seen some of these large cloud providers begin to understand the nuances of this need and some of the specific security requirements associated with that, you have things like FedRAMP now. You have things like the cloud, the GovCloud. There are lots of options out there that serve kind of that niche requirement that no longer require device manufacturers to become experts in data storage. I think it's an unreasonable ask in any industry, honestly, to say you have to both be an expert in whatever your specialization in healthcare is, as well as becoming an expert in cybersecurity. It just goes to demonstrate that the notion that you should rely on experts that have been thinking about this space for a long time and really tried to architect it systemically into a solution, as opposed to try to deal with kind of those one-off when they get in trouble and then they try to react.
So one of the other aspects of this, again, which was part of your article, is the fact that cybersecurity from the outside in looks like, hey, this is a highly technical area, right? Therefore, I need minimum, I mean, pick your 5 years or 10 years or your favorite certifications. But in your article, you clearly point out there are a number of different areas which actually do not require technical skills. In fact, getting people without technical skills actually helps have a more diverse mindset and move the needle forward. Again, given that the healthcare specialty area, have you seen, embracement of or this kind of thought process of going out and kind of jettisoning the existing job description and actually creating ones that are more inclusive and actually help create a more diverse culture beyond just the certifications and the experience?
Yeah, I would almost break it up into two separate populations, right? So there's the one population, which is net new. You're trying to entice people to come to cybersecurity, to learn more about the space and to get interested in it. I think as an industry, we have become so caught up in, oh, you must demonstrate this certification. You must have 17 years in this technology that only got created a year ago. Like our expectations are so rooted in, I would say, relatively antiquated measures of what is actual skill set. Someone who's into cybersecurity doesn't need to have code in GitHub to demonstrate that they're capable, right? I think we have to change our definition. And to your point, that includes changing job descriptions and how we're recruiting folks. If we as a field are more inclusive of those who are not necessarily from traditional backgrounds, I think you'll actually find people who are really passionate about the space. And when you're passionate about it, you're going to go above and beyond, and that's probably going to be a better employee any day of the week. And there's a lot of
yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
There's some really good organizations out there too. There's the International Consortium of Minorities in Cybersecurity. There's Blacks in Cybersecurity. There are lots of groups out there now that are starting to have enough momentum that you can start leveraging them to kind of get different types of candidates. And I think the second half of that question is, you already have people that are in security, right? People are in InfoSec. They don't necessarily call it cybersecurity. I think if we can start to educate them on what the cybersecurity component is and how can they consider moving into that space to leverage that kind of risk mindset and understanding what are controls and what is security, it would go a long way. You have to find pathways into the industry that are non-traditional, because this is a non-traditional evolving space, right? We're not going to see cybersecurity as it is today in another year. It'll be completely different.
So one last question, and this is something that I've been dwelling myself, asked lots of my guests, right? Which is, and it's an interesting thought process that has evolved, at least personally for me, which is having interviewed at least, I think, about 25, 30 Gen Zs over the last 2 months, right? So typically Friday I keep for that community. I've seen somebody who was selling gym memberships 2 years ago is a threat analyst at Experian today. I've seen somebody who did 5 years of nursing, did a fantastic internship at H&R Block, and she already landed her first job. So the thought process is the next generation of leaders are going to be inclusive because they're coming from a diverse background. The question is, for today's generation, which is really people who've come the traditional cybersecurity path, the technical path, how can their mindset change so that while we're still fighting the battle and we have this change of guard, if you will, over the course of the next decade or so, we still are able to kind of keep up our defenses even as this transition happens?
I think it's a very common retort in security to say, oh my gosh, I'm so busy dealing with my current problem. I don't have time to think about planning for the future problem. I can't use your tool because I have so much to do with this moment. So I 100% get that sentiment. I think when I'm trying to convey to someone who is in this space for a while, I think I try to put it in the way that they think. So if we think of a threat model, right? I'm trying to secure whatever it is that I've built. In order to best assess my security, I need to think about these other variables, and homogeneity in thought is absolutely one of those variables. And if I haven't done enough to mitigate that, I should treat it like any other threat. And I should try to do something the same way I would resolve it or any other vulnerability I find. I should try to proactively build a solution to address that. So I think putting it in terms of what security is and what we're doing would absolutely help, right? Whenever you speak the language of the person, that makes a big difference for them to understand kind of what your underlying objective is.
That's a great perspective. Yeah, but sometimes, people are, I mean, it's hard to change mindset. In fact, I have Adam Grant's Think Again right before me, right? Every time I need to go back and say, what do I need to unlearn today? I go look at the thing. It's like, hey, this is where I was wrong. But I think you're right. I think in order for people not to feel threatened, or their quote unquote expertise is not being looked down upon as saying, hey, this doesn't matter anymore. It's like giving them that space, right?
And honestly, right, anybody who's been in security, check the Wall Street Journal headlines, go check the National Vulnerability Database. This is a field that there is no such thing as permanent expertise. If you're not actively doing something technologically, personally, educationally, to like keep yourself on top of things, you're going to become obsolete pretty quick.
So one final question, right? Did you expect the kind of reaction you got after that article was published?
Ooh, did I expect it? I don't know that I had an expectation when I wrote it, if I'm honest. It was more of I want people to think about this. And if I'm not the person who can say it, then I don't know who else I can rely on to do it. Is it going to be my colleagues? Is it going to be people that have never experienced bias? It's probably harder for them, right? So being a voice and having the position to do that, I think it made me want to write it just for the sake of getting the thought out there and hopefully spurring conversation.
And it has spurred a lot of conversation. That's how you and I met, thanks to Lamont Orange, the CISO at Netskope. So again, great conversation, Vidya. I mean, we're glad to connect with you, and I'm still reading the article multiple times, just FYI. So.
Oh, I love it. I'm happy. I really appreciate the efforts that you're going through to try to bring diversity to this conversation, because I think it's the hair's on fire, right? Cybersecurity is never going to be one of those fields that doesn't work on a Friday night. So it's important that this comes up and people are aware of it.
All right, cool. Great chatting with you. Thanks, Vidya.
You as well. Thanks.